Okay, I hope you're sitting down for this one. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham compared Donald Trump's speech about Iran yesterday, the one in which Trump answered no questions about are we leaving Iraq, the one where there were no questions answered about what is the legal justification for assassinating Qasem Soleimani, the speech where Donald Trump sniffed 85 times. That speech, Republican Senator Lindsey Graham says, was like Ronald Reagan's speech demanding that Gorbachev tear down the Berlin Wall. Is this the most ignorant person you've ever seen or the most malicious? That's my question to you. Let's take a look at what Lindsey Graham had to say on Fox News about Donald Trump's speech.
But here's the good news. The president made a very bold decision today to allow things to calm down. This speech will be talked about long after his second term. This is on par with tear down this wall, Mr. Gorbachev. This is resetting the relationship between the world and Iran, just not the United States. The president said there's an evil empire in Iran that's bent on destroying the world, killing the people in Israel and coming after us, and I will no longer tolerate it. So this is on par with Reagan's tear down this wall speech.
This speech will not be talked about long after Donald Trump's second term. So let's actually compare. Here's the moment that Lindsey Graham is referring to of Ronald Reagan speaking.
There is one sign the Soviets can make that would be unmistakable, that would advance dramatically the cause of freedom and peace. Mr. Gorbachev, open this gate. Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
That speech, Lindsey Graham says, was like Trump yesterday, which sounded like this.
Over the last 3 years, under my leadership, our economy is stronger than ever before, and America has achieved energy independence. These historic accomplishments change our strategic priorities. These are accomplishments that nobody thought were possible.
Yeah, here's another clip of the speech that Lindsey Graham says was Ronald Reagan-like.
Your campaign of terror, murder, mayhem will not be tolerated any longer. It will not be allowed to go forward. Today, I am going to ask NATO.
Right. So something is maybe wrong with Lindsey Graham, or his malignant brown nosing has metastasized. And by the way, it sort of sounds like I'm granting that the Reagan speech was a great speech. I'm not even saying that. It just clearly bore no resemblance to Donald Trump's speech whatsoever, between the lies and the sniffing and the irrational foreign policy. And again, Donald Trump spending, a quarter, a third of the speech implicitly or explicitly blaming Barack Obama for his own screw-ups and miscalculations. The Reagan tear down this wall speech, interestingly enough, just to address it momentarily, was a very opportunistic speech in the sense that the Cold War was already clearly nearing its end, and Reagan saying tear down this wall had very little to do with what ultimately happened, which was already well on its way. But to compare Donald Trump's speech to that is absolute nonsense. The best explanation for how to interpret Lindsey Graham actually came from Republican strategist Steve Schmidt. Check this out. Steve Schmidt previously saying, people try to analyze Lindsey through the prism of the manifest inconsistencies that exist between things that he used to believe and what he's doing now. The way to understand him is to look at what's consistent. And essentially what he is in American politics is what in the aquatic world would be a pilot fish, a smaller fish that hovers about a larger predator like a shark, living off its detritus. That's Lindsey. And when he swam around the McCain shark, broadly viewed as a virtuous and good shark, Lindsey took on the patina of virtue. But wherever the apex shark is, you find the Lindsey fish hovering about, and Trump's the newest shark in the sea. Lindsey has a real draw to power, but he's found it unattainable on his own merits. Could not say it better myself. And this is a perfect opportunity to remind you that Lindsey Graham has an opponent in 2020. Lindsey Graham is one of the third of senators that is up for re-election this year. Lindsey Graham could be removed from the Senate representing South Carolina. Jamie Harrison is his name. He raised more than $3.5 million in the fourth quarter of 2019. You can donate to him at jamieharrison.com. That's JAIME Harrison.com. We can remove this guy, and wow, would we be better off if we were able to do that. Make sure you're following The David Pakman Show on Instagram for more coverage of important 2020 races that we should be following. We are at David Pakman Show on Instagram. While you're there, give me a follow at david.pakman. We've got a great interview coming up for you next. And a little bit later in the show, I am sort of going to praise Tulsi Gabbard. I think you will be interested in the content and context of that segment coming up a little bit later. What if I told you that you could read 8 books in one afternoon? That's essentially what one of my favorite apps allows you to do. It's called Blinkist, and you can try it totally free for a week and get 25% off a subscription when you go to Blinkist.com/Pakman. Blinkist takes thousands of best-selling nonfiction books, gathers the most important info and insights from each book, presents each book to you in the form of a condensed ebook or audiobook that you can consume in just 15 minutes. There are only so many hours in your week. Blinkist makes it possible for you to absorb the most valuable takeaways from nonfiction books that you otherwise might not have a chance to read. I just finished listening to The Way We Eat Now by B. Wilson, whose work I've recommended to you before. Super interesting look at how the global food system works and impacts the way that we live. You can use Blinkist to get through a topic quickly and efficiently. It's really useful if you just want to explore a certain topic but don't necessarily want to commit to reading the entire book about whatever it is. And a premium subscription is only about $8 a month, which gives you unlimited access to every single book that they offer. They have books on politics, economics, philosophy, science, you name it. You can try it out yourself, totally free for a week, and get 25% off if you decide to subscribe just by going to Blinkist.com/Pakman. I've put the link right underneath this video. Like the rest of us, I bet you're going into 2020 thinking about what you didn't get around to in 2019 and your goals for the new year. If you want to work towards being your best self in 2020, understand more about the world around you, and make sure that your time is well spent, then Blinkist is for you.